The Ryen Russillo Show is presented by DraftKings. Today, we're taking a look at the transfer portal. Max Olson's all over it, where the big names are going, where the big names have already signed. An interesting story out of Washington that involves LSU. And then we'll take a look at the games as well. So a lot of portal stuff. We're going to talk with Robbie Hummel, who was terrific on the NBC Peacock NBA Monday game where they're doing it from the bench. He and Austin Rivers. I'm going to get his thoughts. He's been around Detroit a lot. We'll do some college basketball stories. So a lot of fun with him. And then, of course, we have life advice and my open on John Harbaugh out in Baltimore. DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook for live betting, is making every snap, every drive, every moment of the NFL playoffs worth watching, with over $2.5 million in prizes up for grabs every Sunday during the playoffs. They're turning up the stakes for every DraftKings customer. Here's how simple it is. Head to DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, and receive a promo token. Place a live bet of $1 or more on any of Sunday's playoff games, and you're automatically entered. That's it. And every live bet means another chance to win. Place a live bet and stack your entries all Sunday long. There'll be more than 75,000 winners every NFL playoff Sunday. This Sunday, we got the Bills, Jags at 1 Eastern, then Niners, Eagles in the middle window, and we're closing it out with Patriots and the Chargers. I gotta tell you right now, I think my favorite game is Houston -3 at Pittsburgh at this point. Yeah, sure, fine, road favorite, whole deal. I like that one, and I'm really, really tempted. I just feel like, am I going to fall for the Green Bay Chicago rematch thing here? But if I had to right now, I would lay the 1.5 with Green Bay in the rematch against Chicago. Nice little story out of the Bears there. Kind of wish I had bet against them the last couple of weeks of the season. Anyway, so jump in, bet live, and let the entries roll for a shot at a share of over $2.5 million in prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Ryen, R-Y-E-N. That's code Ryen, R-Y-E-N. Bet live for your share of $2.5 million in prizes with the code. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Chill.
Buy now and get the Russillo hoodie free. Call 1-800-European Theater.
The week is the Oregon Ducks.
We need a big push here.
I want to start with the breaking news out of the NFL. John Harbaugh out after 18 years as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. So want to do the resume. I mean, he didn't die, so we're not doing an obituary here, but 180 and 113, that's the record. 13 playoff wins, Super Bowl in 2012. Incredible Super Bowl, by the way. Only 3 losing seasons. He's got a 5-11 in there and then 2 8-9s. That's pretty heavy stuff. When Steve Bisciotti was looking for a head coach prior to hiring Harbaugh, he had said he's looking for a Hall of Fame coach. I don't know if Harbaugh will make the Hall of Fame. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is the best Hall of Fame because they are selective. They don't just let everybody in. And I think they celebrate the best. I don't think that they worry about the lean years. I think they look at like your best stuff. And, usually a Super Bowl for a quarterback will get you in. But for the most part, there's probably way more guys that we think should be in it as opposed to some of the other sports where you're like, that guy got in? So, look, I don't know if Harbaugh gets in there with the 1 Super Bowl, and he still has a lot of work to do. He's a young man in his 60s, but he looks young. If Tyler Loop makes that field goal in the last game of the season on Sunday night, Ravens win the division. They're in the playoffs again. Does this happen? I don't know. It depends on what the playoff game looks like, right? Put together a little bit of a run, and no, it probably doesn't happen. But I don't think it was about that kick. I don't think it was just about the 25 season because, look, if you just look at this year, you go, all right, this is one of the Super Bowl favorites before the season started, and this is probably one of the single most disappointing teams in 2025 that you could have. There's probably a lot of choices there, but the Ravens probably have a few more excuses with some of the injuries that they had to deal with on top of everything else. But the division's terrible. The Steelers, that Steelers team, you watched them this year. They're in the playoffs. You're not. So the expectations division, I don't think it's just the Loop missed field goal, although it's the first thing I thought about. I mean, I've thought about that kick a lot. And by the way, I love that kid in college too. So Steve Bisciotti, who's the owner of this team, who, if you read the John Feinstein book on him, you're going to like him. You're going to wish your owner were more like him. The way he comes off in the book is terrific. And I think even since that book, I think that book's like over a decade old. It feels like the book was a really, really good accounting of like how he goes into decisions and how he sees himself as an owner and what he wants his franchise to be like. But there's also something else happening here, because this is somebody who is incredibly patient. And I don't think firing Harbaugh after 18 years shows impatience. I don't think that's an owner that's watching that kick be missed and be like, all right, time to make a change here. There's clearly more to it, because that's what I think Shadi does. I think he kind of steps back and takes a bigger picture. But if you look at the trends of coaches being fired, and I just want to point to the guys that were fired after one season. If you go from 1980 to 2000, only 7 head coaches were fired after one season. If you go from 2001 to 2010, 5 coaches were fired after only one season. If you look at it from 2011 till now, it's 15 coaches that have been fired after 1 year. So we're basically averaging 1 a year after having 7 in 20 years and 5 in 10 years prior to this. Pete Carroll's now been fired after 1 year twice in his career, with the Jets in 94 and Vegas this year. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, I'm like, can you be a Hall of Fame head coach and also be fired twice after 1 year? I think with the Super Bowl and what he did at SC, Steve's going to, he might already be. I don't even know. I lose track of some of that stuff every now and then. It doesn't sound good when you're averaging 1 firing after 1 season every single year, but it kind of speaks to what we have in this sport, what we have in college football on top of everything else, because there's just less patience. There's less patience than ever before. And I don't know that it's directly related to money. Maybe the money in the college game, but not necessarily the pro game. If you look at the college salaries, it's just a rising tide for all. In the NFL, it's not really like that. It feels like there's this upper class and then maybe no middle class. I was looking at the salaries this morning. Like there's $20 million for Andy Reid. Sean Payton's at like $18 million. Harbaugh was at like $16 million. I think he was making a little bit more than Jim was with the Chargers. So there was a good chunk of guys that were like 14 million north, but there was only like a couple like at 20 or 18. But then at the low end, there's guys still making like $4 million a year being a head coach in the NFL. Like that's ridiculous. Basketball, the money hasn't caught up necessarily. Baseball's gone in the opposite direction. I think there's podcasters making more than all the managers combined in the AL Central. But for football, I think this money to the coaches, with the salary cap projected to be $300 million next year and the revenue that this league makes, that it may not just be like, hey, things are more intense and the new owners have less patience than ever before. And if you're making all of this crazy money and then you don't step up, like we're going to fire you. I think that money is like nothing to these guys anymore, especially when we're talking about coaches that are being fired that are making less than 8 figures a year. Not that anybody's crying for them, but the money, I don't think it's been a full rising tide thing that's happened with NFL coaches the same way. So yeah, again, it could get back to that lack of patience. There were quotes about Harbaugh being dismissed, and I thought one was really simple from ESPN this morning that I was reading, that it was a current player. And he's like, you know what? It's a little surprising, but I'm not shocked. And that's the day-to-day stuff being around the franchise that, you don't have access to. I don't have access to. I don't care enough to talk to somebody about the Ravens every single week. Like, what's going on over there? But this is part of the process of like, I don't know that any of us necessarily know. Like, I just don't look at a record. I won't look at a record and be like, well, that coach sucks because of this record. Do you like the work that the coach is doing? Do you not like the work the coach is doing? Do you have a good record, but you think you have a long-term mistake? But again, that guy never ends up being fired. I also think there's a really interesting Lamar storyline in all of this, because the disconnect was real. I don't know what Lamar wants to be. The story, whether you go back to like when he was sort of offered as a free agent, but not really there any interest, and was there clue? Like, there's a lot of weird shit that's gone on with Lamar that has, some of it has nothing to do with him, and some of it directly has stuff to do with his decisions on like sitting out 1 practice a week and all that kind of stuff, and Harbaugh being frustrated. So this feels like at least a win for the Lamar camp part of it, if this was becoming more untenable, this relationship between head coach and their star quarterback, a star quarterback who was diminished this year. I hope it's because of injuries. There was a couple runs in that Pittsburgh game where it's like, that does not look like the same guy. And that part of a game for a quarterback, as you start approaching 30, it usually starts to fall off of a cliff. And Lamar is so special physically, like I'd almost think that it would take longer for that to happen for him. But this year, the running part of his game was the worst it's ever been in his career, which is fine if the rest of it's all terrific. And he's so good. His resume is so good, the MVPs, that you should just look at 25 and Lamar Jackson deserves a pass. But this decision tells you that they're way more like all in on Lamar than maybe some of the stories that we're reading about. Ultimately, whenever you're deciding to fire or hire a head coach, and meaning hire, keep a guy around and not fire him is probably the way I should phrase it. I think it's just really simple. Like, do you think you have the right guy? And yeah, you could need a new voice, especially after 18 years. But look, it's not like it's the same players all the time over those 18 years. They're cycling those guys out. And it felt like for a long time there were some lean years there. There was like this middle section for Harbaugh from 2013 to 2017 where it became a topic more often. It's like, hey, should the Ravens shake it up? And so many other franchises would have done it. Like, yeah, we know he won a Super Bowl, but you know what? What's going on with this season? Like, why are we down here? What's going on with the offense? Let's just make a change because we're going to make a change. And it gets back to that point of Bisciotti, and like, he knew the whole time. It's like, I think I have the right guy. I know the results are not based, or the results are not to the level of the standard that we had when Harbaugh first came in here, because when he first came in, I'm going to tell you in a second, like, he tore it up. But you know what? I still think he's kind of the right guy. And clearly, it got to a point where it didn't feel like that was the right guy. First 5 years for Harbaugh, 5 playoffs, 3 conference championship games, 1 conference championship game appearance since that Super Bowl. So I would close with this. If Bisciotti thinks it's time, that's good enough for me. The Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. The Hornets are coming to town Monday, and I was looking in the app, and I see Clippers Hornets tickets starting at $25. You're telling me I only have to pay you $25 to watch Hornets basketball? We've talked about Knipple a ton. Probably haven't talked about Diabate enough. Brandon Miller's last week has been spectacular. I'm talking like poster, not just posters, but like, hey, I would order that poster if I were living in the greater Charlotte area with some of the stuff that Miller has done. I love this team right now. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Russillo for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code RUSSILLO for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. We are in the transfer portal season for college football. Day one, we had over 4,500 players enter the portal. We're going to go through all the big names, all the latest stuff. A guy who crushes it when it comes to this, which I think is going to become a bigger season every single year. From ESPN, it's Max Olson. Good to see you, man.
Hey, that number's 5,800 now, Ryan. So it won't stop.
Day one was 4,500. I lost track of the next 1,300 players.
Yeah, I counted up this morning. If we're talking 105-man rosters, there's enough FBS scholarship players in the portal right now. You could field 26 college football teams. So,
all right. Well, let's start with some of the headline stuff here, because there's a lot of places I want to go here. So let's try to get through it as quickly as we can. Sorsby, is this just a Texas kid going back to Texas after leaving Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. I think Brendan Sorsby has shown a ton of improvement over his 2 years at Cincinnati. He started his career at Indiana before Sid got there. And, I think he's one of those guys that at the start of the year, he was like maybe a fringe top 10 Big 12 quarterback in terms of perception, but as a guy who's super confident and believes he's the best quarterback in the Big 12, he's a super, like, if you spend any time around him, very confident in himself. He had a really good year, great dual threat player. He is a guy that thought about going pro, and he's got good measurables. The tape, like, he could certainly build on it. And, maybe if Dante Moore and Ty Simpson were staying in school, you'd be kind of dumb not to go pro. But he looked at Texas Tech as a chance to, go try and prove he's a first round pick and go play with a ton of great players there. Go back home to Texas. And then, certainly if you can make $5-6 million bucks, that helps.
Yeah, because I think there was a lot of push that maybe he was going to end up at LSU.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Tech. There was the line about him just being blown away by the facilities, which I think we all collectively laughed at. I think that's like when, was it Mike Hampton who once said he loved the schools when he signed with the Rockies? Yeah. So anyway, good for Mike Hampton. I'm not being critical of it at all.
They are incredible facilities.
They're right. But like, I think there's also something where, like, again, I hear this all secondhand. This is something that you're reporting on, but you'll wonder, like, of the cycle of the boosters that get excited about getting involved and the rules that I put in quotes about like what a team can or can't do. And then if they get burnt, then it's like, do the same people go, yeah, let's do this all over again? And with Tech, that clearly ramped up for the 25 season, win the Big 12, feel like, I don't know what kind of wake-up call that Oregon playoff game was for them, but this was not a one-and-done thing for the people that were behind the money decisions with Tech. If anything, it felt like they were more empowered about what they were able to pull off in 25 and being like, let's just keep heading in this direction and not screw around.
No, it's absolutely well said. And I've written about Texas Tech a bunch this season. And I think for them, and Joe McGuire was like well aware of the pressure. Like they needed to win the Big 12 this year for the first time in school history. If they didn't win the Big 12, like it was a failure, and that there'd be a lot of pressure and a lot of problems. I think if you had all this talent and you just went 8-4, right? And so I think for them winning the Big 12, just like covering that game, being down on the field with them afterward, there was like just kind of that sense of relief of like, okay, we did it. Like now we're going to the playoff. We think we can make a run, but it's like kind of house money from here because we did what we set out to do in winning 12 games. And in some ways, yes, they were like, if you talk to their GM, James Blanchard, and the people there, like in October, they're like, here's who we're going to go get in the portal in January. Like they were well prepared to make a run here, but to get shut out by Oregon the day before the portal opens, I think also motivates the money people of like, yeah, we're not going to lose to LSU on this quarterback, right? We're not going to go, like, we're going to go chase the best players that become available. And, they've picked up the number one defensive tackle to help replace Lee Hunter. They have Cam Coleman, the number one wide receiver in the portal, on campus today. They're chasing, they have a chance to probably sign maybe 4 of the top 10 guys in the portal. So, this is not a one-year deal. They are very much invested on running it back.
Okay, so what do you think happens now at LSU at quarterback? Because we have the Desmond Williams angle, we have the Sam Leavitt visit, but he was on his way to Tennessee after Baton Rouge. So I also think it's important to point out this Williams story out of Washington's nuts because he just days ago signed what was, quote, a lucrative NIL deal that they said that he had not filed his paperwork to transfer, but he just announced it on social media. So they were like, what the hell is going on here? And of course, it's worth reminding everybody there's a back connection there with Kiffin where Williams was committed to Ole Miss for like 6 months, about 3 years ago. So what can you tell us on this one that basically is a package deal of all the things that people hate about college football right now?
No, it absolutely is. This was like, as the portal opens up, Thursday at midnight, and we go through a few days of this, like there are names that pop up that are like surprising. I think Desmond Williams announcing on Instagram that he's going to transfer portal was like the first like whoa of this cycle, like where like just there was not rumors. They had publicly announced 5 days ago he's re-signed. From what we've heard, that deal is north of $4 million. He's going to make him one of the highest paid QBs in the country. So it wasn't a money issue, in terms of his deal with Washington, and just really, not indications that he was thinking about doing anything else other than staying at Washington. And so the timing of this on Tuesday night was insane because first he announces that he plans to enter the portal. He's going to do what's best for him and his family and enter the transfer portal. At the same time he's posting this, Lane Kiffin is sitting courtside at an LSU men's basketball game with Sam Leavitt on the visit. And I don't know if you saw it, there's this incredible photo of Sam Leavitt looking at his phone and Lane Kiffin looking at Sam Leavitt as this is like playing out. And then Leavitt wraps up the visit, decides, okay, I'm going to go visit Tennessee now, because I think it became clear to a lot of people that Desmond Williams appears to be the target for LSU now. And obviously for a lot of money. And so there's a lot of complications with that. And we Washington, he signed a deal. Like to sign a deal and then make this flip, like the school is going to try to enforce that. The Big Ten is going to try to enforce that. We saw one of these issues play out last year with a defensive back, Xavier Lucas, who's trying to transfer from Wisconsin to Miami to go home. And Wisconsin they put their foot down and said, you signed something, we're not going to put your name in the transfer portal. We're just not going to do it. And so, we can try and talk things out, but we're not going to let you transfer there. And he ends up withdrawing as a student and enrolling at Miami. You can do that. You can operate outside the portal. I think we're going to have a similar dispute here because there's at this point there's no like coming back, right? You can't say like, hey, we're gonna really be tough on you, but you're coming back, right? You're going to change your mind and stay at Washington. So yeah, this is going to be a big issue, bigger issue than it was a year ago, and one that's going to bring a lot of attention to these deals they sign. Ultimately, like it could also create some hurdles here for Lane Kiffin, who needs to go sign one of these quarterbacks as fast as possible.
All right, so I don't know how this changes anything, but Ty Simpson, just as we started taping this, announced that he's leaving Alabama and entering into the NFL draft. Again, any of these major programs have to be prepared for any of this stuff. I'd imagine DeBoer and Simpson's relationship is strong enough that it's not like Alabama's waking up going, oh my God, now what do we do? But how do you think that impacts any of the stuff that we're talking about? Because there's still another list of like 10 quarterbacks that we don't know. They're all like name brands, at least in the college football world, and we don't know where they're going to end up. But Alabama certainly changes the equation for some of the other teams that didn't think that they were going to be out there hunting.
Yeah, I think it probably at the start of the season, this probably would have been the ideal scenario actually for Kalen DeBoer, as much as you'd like to have Ty Simpson as a 2-year starter. The fact is they've got a 5-star freshman in Keelan Russell from Dallas who's really talented. And it's just, how it is nowadays, Ryan. It's like those guys don't sit for 2 years, right? So like if Ty Simpson's coming back, then your backups, Keelan Russell and Austin Mack, they're going to kind of figure out like, do I got to bail on this? And so to have Ty Simpson go pro and, I think probably at this point in time, we'd say be a first-round pick. And then you kind of hand the keys to Keelan Russell, I think is kind of, it's a good outcome for Alabama. I think it's one that the fan base will be excited about. It does to me, though, like as you kind of have this musical chairs here, there's a couple really big programs that don't have the QB solved yet. You've got LSU, you've got Oregon, who's still waiting on Dante Moore's decision. You've got Miami. To me, Miami is like the big mystery one in all of this because there was a lot of speculation tying them to Lenora Sellers. He's staying in South Carolina. CJ Bailey announced he's staying at NC State. Last 2 years, Miami pulled a guy out of the portal who had already announced they were entering the NFL draft. And so I think that talking with personnel people last night, as they were trying to figure out like what is Desmond Williams doing, I think that the one we're still trying to solve is what is Miami up to here?
What do you think Desmond Williams is doing? He must know if.
Yeah, everyone you talk to thinks that it's going to be LSU and it's going to be for, something in the range of $5 to $6 million. And so, again, the question is how quickly can you get that wrapped up? But I think that's a guy that Lane Kiffin knows really well and really wants to get. I think Oregon likes Desmond Williams, but probably is not trying to spend at that level maybe for a quarterback. Maybe Miami can get in the mix there with him. But yeah, again, it's as you kind of have this musical chairs play out here. Now Sam Leavitt goes on and maybe goes to Tennessee now. I think Dylan Raiola's hoping to go to Oregon, and we'll see if that actually happens. It's as these guys make commitments now, you've got still a few big stars that got to make a move here in the next few days.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out on the money part of it. When you hear about money announced, can you check with somebody to find out how fake the announcement is? Because usually, like on the player side, it feels like there's a lot of rounding up. So what do we know about, like, I don't care about per player, but as you were kind of alluding to position, like where has that spending gone? What is real about what it costs to get a top end guy at some of these positions?
Yeah, it's tough to report on. Like if I just went and tweeted the first number I heard from somebody all the time, like I would be wrong all the time. I think that's, one.
They're generally always considered outrageously like rounding up numbers, right? Is from what I hear.
Generally you hear something that's maybe a little bit too high, right? But like I'll give you an example. Like I wrote a piece on Texas Tech's defensive line this season, and if you talk to the players themselves, you talk to their agents, you talk to Joey McGuire, you talk to Cody Campbell, you talk to their GM James Blanchard, everyone's going to give you like a slightly different number, And so you're like trying to like triangulate that. And like ultimately, like Cody Campbell's writing the check. Like I kind of trust if what he's saying. I'm not saying I don't trust everybody else, but you're trying to kind of like, no one's like, hey, here's a PDF. Well, let me just show you. So you're trying to like kind of figure out what's right. And, certainly for Texas Tech, they spend a lot of money. They're going to continue to spend a lot of money. But yeah, it's hard to narrow down. You hear a lot of stuff as this is going on. I would say at the quarterback position, it certainly jumped up for the proven guys. I think last year you could re-sign your quarterback, or you could go get like a pretty good proven quarterback for about 1.5 million. Like that was like considered like fair. And now I've talked to a bunch of GMs who are trying to re-sign their quarterback this year. And it's like, man, the conversation's starting at 3. And I think for some of these programs, especially like in the Big 12, where you've seen a few of them move on, it's like, we love this guy. Yes, we could come up with $3 million, but like, we also have to go get like a dozen other players in the portal. And like, we're trying to stick to a budget, whether the cap stuff is real or not. Like, we are trying to stick to a budget. And so you get into these pretty complicated decisions as these prices keep going up. At other positions, I think the perception is usually like, if a guy is pretty good, he wants $500,000. If he's been a starter, he's looking for, 500 to $1 million plus. And I think good linemen and good pass rushers and great receivers, are going to get over $1 million. And I mean, we've got some big time running backs right now too. You would say like, hey, why would you spend $1 million on a running back? But, some of these superstars right now, Kewan Lacey, Jaden Baugh at Florida, Isaac Brown at Louisville, like, schools are going to have to pay $2-3 million to get those guys or keep them.
Yeah, because if we look at like the payment structure over the years here, you could sit there and I've already touched on this a little bit, but I wonder how many new money people would feel burnt by it. Because look, I'll say this: it's very clear that this is now a 3-year trend with the SEC, where this is not to the standard. This is not what we would expect, and even if I think it's the deepest conference still, the domination, there's just too many results now that I can't, I don't have the evidence that I used to have in the past to be like, what are you guys even talking about? That is not happening. So whatever the gap, SEC, Big Ten, if you think the Big Ten's better, now I'm open to all of it, as we're on year 3 of kind of what this is. But, I've seen some other stuff written where it's like, well, once the SEC, the other schools could pay. And sometimes I'll hear it from a fan base or a guy who I know played at one of the other schools, where I'm like, you seriously want to argue that you guys were never doing anything that was in the shady area of things? Because we know that you were. So what are you talking about? But for the schools that maybe were more by the rule book, I wondered if they would get excited and be like, oh, we can actually kind of do this out in the open, and we can, everything's sort of allowed here, which again, other people would argue that not everything is allowed, but we can kind of get to that. And that there'd be a bunch of excitement and there'd be a bunch of money, and then they'd go, hey, we went 7-5 again. What a waste of money. Why am I doing this again? We paid how much for this one guy and he stinks. And so I wondered if there'd be some kind of correction. But then at the same time, I would think of the first time you were actually able to compensate your college quarterback, and you're like, we're going to give him $1 million. Oh my God, $1 million for quarterback. And then it's like, yeah, but do you realize once we get through a couple cycles of competition and bidding on this stuff, and we know that people cannot help themselves. That's why there's a salary cap in football, in hockey, in basketball, because if you just let it be a free market, guys would be making $80 million a year in basketball. All right. So that even if there's some correction for the passion of wanting to cut these checks for all of these kids and different fan bases and boosters feeling burnt by it, you would at the same time have a lot of schools going, I can't believe we were getting a difference maker quarterback for the total of $1 million. It would make sense that it's in the $5 or $6 million range that we're hearing about with the top end guys, because you just knew based on competition alone that it was going to get there. So I wonder how those two things play, and feel free to point out anything that you think is inaccurate in my assumptions or my summary of where this has gone in a couple of years. But as it feels like those two things are battling each other, and it's also sort of hilarious too. How do you spend $5 or $6 million on a quarterback when you supposedly have $20 million in cap space to use for your entire athletic department?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, or let's not try to do that math, because it just doesn't.
We can just move on from that.
Yeah. I will say this season, Ryan, I think you are already seeing the signs of I think with Brian Kelly I think with Mike Gundy, I think even a couple of years ago with Jimbo Fisher, like we're already seeing the signs of like, hey man, like James Franklin too. Like, hey, we spent a lot of money on this team and you're blowing it. Like we're going to fire you. Like that's just like, that's what it is now. If the investment level rises up, then the stakes are just heightened every year, even though your team is completely different every year. And, I think that right now you're also seeing what SIG is doing in Indiana is so insane, and yet it sparks hope for everyone, right? And so it's like, freaking Indiana's doing it, right? Like their championship window opened the second he got there. That's insane. And so it's like, all right, well, what are they doing? Let's try to do what they're doing. And so we've, in the last 2-3 years, like you would talk to, personnel staffers at playoff programs, and they'd be like, yeah, we're trying to take like 5 to 10 transfers a year. Like we're not trying to overdo it. Like we're signing blue chip high school recruits, all that. We develop guys, we get them to the pros, all that. We've normalized in the last like 2 years here, not only like paying a lot of money for every player, but flipping it every year and just bringing in 25 transfers every year. And, constantly looking at who can we go get to make us better. And I think you could also like look at where we're at today and say, like, I've had this conversation with Blanchard at Texas Tech. Like some of these teams we thought were going to be really good to start the year, and back in August, like Penn State, like Clemson, who had everybody coming back and it looks so good on paper. There's maybe like an argument to be made here of, having that veteran, retained, experienced team. Like if you stay out of the portal because you've got those guys, that might be a mistake with kind of where this is going right now, because some would argue like you need to just be constantly recruiting your roster. You need to constantly be recruiting over even the veteran starters you got, the NFL guys you've got, and applying that pressure every year and boosting the roster every year. Because otherwise, maybe the guy that's, a junior doesn't get that much better as a senior. And maybe there's that complacency a little bit. And you're looking at a season like Clemson or Penn State did, and you're like, man, how are we not better than we were a year ago? Like it doesn't make sense. And so just this need for everybody to flip this all the time, whether you're winning or losing, it's very expensive. There's a lot of attrition to it. It kind of makes the whole market like a little bit worse and crazier. But that, as you see people and these 4 programs that are at the end here have success with it, like I think for everybody else, it's like, man, like, we want to keep our players. Like we want to be competitive. We see Indiana is showing it's possible. But it also creates like a lot of spending and a lot of hope that's like probably not going to pay off too.
Yeah, the biggest mistake is like thinking that Indiana's fucking everybody else up, because it's discrediting what they do as evaluators.
Oh, for sure.
And, there was a stretch there forever. I can go back. I've always talked about like revisiting this. There was a stretch there like early 2000s and on. It was like, look at everybody, like Stoops as soon as he got there, title, right? Urban as soon as he gets there. Saban was right on the map immediately. Mac took a little bit longer, but it was very clear. Like it felt like the coaches that mattered were doing their best work in the first few years, but that window was still like a 3 or 4 year window. So just because Cignetti's doing what he's doing, any other AD or fan base holding their program to the same, like I've seen it written about. It's like, hey, no excuses. It's like, well, I'd rather just praise what it is and how special this is, and how unique it is.
A+ at all of these categories, right? In terms of how they're doing it there.
Can you add more to? Is it Wilson? And they're like, by the way, I love Hoover. I love that pickup at quarterback. It just makes sense. Like, I don't know if it's the Cignetti pitch, but there is another part of this story that I feel like deserves more just awareness on how these guys have, like, if I owned an NFL team, I'd want to meet with the Indiana staff and go, what do you do to so perfectly identify what you need? Because again, if we're talking overall talent rankings, there's an argument to be made that Cignetti doesn't even have this thing going yet. And yet they're a game away from playing from a national championship.
Yeah. And they've already loaded up for next year. They have Josh Hoover coming from TCU. They have Turbo Richard, the running back from Boston College. They got Nick Marsh, who, probably the second or third best receiver in the portal. You're going head to head with Notre Dame on him and getting him to sign. They've got one of the best pass rushers coming in. So they're going to run it back too. They're going to keep doing this. It's incredible to watch, because you're right. Like the thing people say last year is like, oh, well, I mean, they brought all these JMU guys with them, and that really helps. That sets the culture. These guys have played before. These guys, what they can do translates in the Big Ten. It's not that bad of a jump from what they're doing at JMU to doing at Indiana. And you kind of get a lot of credit for, we brought these 12, 13 guys with us, and that really boosted the roster in year one. Okay, well, some of those guys stayed, but how do you explain year two then? Because I think that they did an exceptional job. It's not just the Heisman quarterback. You go through the whole depth chart. They either had returning seniors or they went out and got exactly the guy they needed. And I think part of it is the availability of talent, and they know exactly what they're doing, exactly what they're looking for. They're very well prepared before the portal opens to go get the guys they want to get that fit them. And part of that, like we say, if there's 5,000 guys out there and it only takes 20, they know what they're looking for. And they don't have to give each of those guys $3 million to come to Indiana. The guys are bought into, hey, I see the results. I see what they're doing here. It's exceptional. It's what they've done this year. And I don't think it's going to drop off when these JMU guys graduate or this portal class. We've seen in the past, it can be hard to maintain if you're doing the portal thing every year, but I think they're also a pretty exceptional developmental and cultural program. And so, I think now guys see it. I think Cignetti's pitch in the past has been, I think he's had 5 or 6 guys since 2019 win Offensive Player of the Year in the conference. And so Fernando Mendoza buys that pitch and comes out and takes his game to another level. Now Josh Hoover's going to have a chance to do the same. And so if you can keep stacking this and you have the proof of the playoff like this, guys are going to keep coming. It doesn't matter. Yeah, they could go to Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State or all these other schools, but they're into it. They're into the brand he's created and they want to win.
Have you talked to teams that have decided they're just not even going to bother with high school quarterbacks anymore?
It's a good question. I mean, it is, because ultimately we're getting the whole how much should we pay a high schooler and how much should we pay for a high school class? That is its own conversation that I have with GMs all the time. That's I find really interesting, because the statistics are what they are. These guys don't stay. And now that the rule is unlimited transfers for their career, guys I'm seeing players pop up in the portal who are looking for their fourth school right now. It's pretty commonplace. That's going to keep happening as long as things are set up the way they are right now. And so part of the challenge is okay, how much are you going to pay? How much are you going to invest in a guy before he actually gets on the field for you and starts producing? And then once he does do that, then is he jumping up to $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, right? I think it's a tough business right now. You've got to work really hard to keep guys on board. And even if you're successful, and even if they're an all-conference guy and performing at a high level and love the offense, somebody can come along and offer them something better. And so, I think the high school, you're seeing freshman quarterbacks who just got through a year, who redshirted, are hitting the portal now. I think everybody is looking at this from just this direct path to getting on the field. And, a couple of years ago, it was kind of clear as heading this way that past year or two, if they weren't starting, they were leaving. And now I think that's happening even earlier. So, you've got obviously the 4 teams in the playoff at the end here, all did it with transfers. And I think that's going to continue. I think whether it's expensive to keep them, and, they just don't stay very long if they're not the guy as soon as they get there.
Let's run through just more of the players here then. So it sounded like, this is twice now with Tech, whether it was the LSU Tech battle over Sorsby, but, a week ago it felt like Cam Coleman, hey, Alabama, he'll stay in the SEC or whatever. But you think Cam Coleman's going to end up in Lubbock?
It's a Texas versus Texas A&M versus Texas Tech battle, which since they left the Big 12, we haven't seen too many of those, Ryan. I think that's going to be extra spicy here. I think it was pretty evident, especially once Hugh Freeze got fired. Man, people are coming after Cam Coleman. I talked to one source that thinks that he could, as a wide receiver, he could get $3 million from this next school. He could get 3.5, something like that. He has the potential to be a first round pick a year from now. He was a top 5 recruit coming in. He's played with 5 different quarterbacks in his 2 years at Auburn. He's shown, you've watched Vanderbilt this year, he can take over a game. For Texas, for A&M, for Tech, this is going to just be a straight up bidding war. And fascinated to see what he prioritizes here, what he and his family prioritize. But he's a true number 1 receiver, and he's the number 2 player in our rankings right now.
Give me some other big names. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot too much here where you feel like I'm just asking you to predict where all of these kids are going to land. But like, give us a few more names and so the bigger ticket items right now that you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, the Leavitt one, the Sam Leavitt recruitment's been pretty interesting to follow. I covered that playoff game last year, Texas, Arizona State. Like watching him live, it's like, dude, this kid is special. He was only a redshirt freshman last year. Exceptional year with Scadaboo last year at Arizona State. Got hurt this year, got knocked out for the back half of the season. Kind of like it was kind of out there, but a little bit surprising he made a move considering how tight he was with Kenny Dillingham. And he goes to Kentucky for a visit. Now Kentucky has flipped Kenny Minchie, the Notre Dame backup from Nebraska. He goes to he was going to go visit Texas Tech. Texas Tech gets the deal done with Sorsby in their battle with LSU. He goes to LSU. LSU is now on evidently chasing Desmond Williams Jr. from Washington. Now he's going to Tennessee, and Tennessee's just kind of been like seemingly kind of quiet. They haven't, I don't think, had a lot of OBs from quarterbacks so far. Certainly would be a good move for him, but there's people kind of assumed he's from Oregon. Would he end up at Oregon if Dante Moore goes pro? So I think he has an interesting decision to make. That could be another one where Miami just comes into the picture and says like, "Hey, we got to figure this out. You're the guy." Like it's. I think it's been a good quarterback market this year. You've got Drew Mestemaker going to Oklahoma State from North Texas after leading the country in passing this year. Byron Brown going with his coach to Auburn. We mentioned Hoover, Rocco Beck going to Penn State. You've still got DJ Lagway out there, which honestly, Ryan, a year ago, if you
I can't believe there's not like I still am a Lagway believer. I'm just saying that right
I am too. And I think if you had told me in August, he's going to go in the portal and he's going to go take official visits to Virginia and Stanford and Baylor, you'd be like, wait, what the hell happened? Like, because he truly, like, we all kind of viewed him as a 5-star freshman, like a truly like has a chance to take the step and be a top 10 quarterback this year. He's just had so many injuries. And I think that is really, you talk to personnel people, like, that's just like the concern is like developmentally 2 years in that he's not where he should be because he's missed a lot of practice and he's just missed a lot of time and has not even been throwing the football very much in the offseason. So I think there's a lot there. I agree. Like, I think that would be a great guy to invest in. I wondered when he entered the portal, like, if you're dabbling in Clemson and they recruited DJ Lagway in high school and have a good relationship with him, like, wouldn't that be an incredible move for Clemson with when you've just got, backups returning and you want to have a competition? His dad went to Baylor. I think he just visited Baylor. You got Stanford fighting. You got Ole Miss is trying to get him in because they don't know what's going to happen with Trinidad Chambliss. And so Ole Miss is on him and they're on Deuce Knight from Auburn and they're trying to kind of figure out what to do here. So yeah, it's I agree with you. I'm surprised. He visited Florida State. Like, I'm surprised that it's not done yet. Either Baylor's got to like find the money to get this done, or he's going to go pick a spot and a big reset here.
How about his teammate there, Jadan Baugh, who I think behind Love is my favorite running back from college football this past season. I mean, a lot of this stuff can get lost. The receiver's gone after a year, who was a big time recruit, but I know the running back price. I don't know if it's the same as like not drafting one in the first round, but I'm telling you right now, in the college game, that guy is a fucking stud. Yes. And I don't blame anybody for not watching Florida games this year. He was so good that I'm going to watch him this series. That's how special I think he is as a running back.
You talk to, like, especially as Napier was on the hot seat during the season, like talking to the SEC personnel folks, they're like, yeah, no, it's Jadan Baugh. Like, that's, if that opens up, like, we're all lining up to try to get Jadan Baugh here. Tough runner, like just a sophomore, like really talented. And Jadan Baugh has never put his name in the portal, but there have been a lot of people fighting over Jadan Baugh here over the past 2 months. And he announced yesterday he's staying at Florida. And that came as a surprise, I think, to some people. It's a huge deal for John Summerall, obviously, and a big priority as soon as he got the job. Like, we got to get this done. But yeah, Florida's running backs coach, Jabbar Jalouk, went to Texas. Texas lost both of their running backs to the portal. And it was pretty clear, like, yeah, they're going to try and get Jadan Baugh if they can. I think LSU certainly, if they couldn't get Kewan Lacey to come, they certainly wanted to get Jadan Baugh. And so it's a big deal for Florida. Well, hey, we still got a little more time here before the portal closes. So you got to kind of fight and hold on here. But I think Jadan Baugh is a player that is absolutely, a couple years ago, you would say when Quinshon Judkins was going in the portal from Ole Miss, I remember there was a lot of conversation about like, come on, like, why would you pay a running back $1 million? Like, look at the NFL. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Of course, he goes and wins a national championship at Ohio State, but like now it's like, you got to keep that guy. It's not really about the economics of it and about, do we look smart for this? It's like, this guy has to stay here. And so, yeah, those guys are going to get paid over $1 million, and those deals, could approach $2 or $3 million.
Yeah, I guess I am always a little bit like, considering all the turnover that they've had, I was a little surprised by that. I just looked up the John Henry Daily latest, the edge for Utah. It's going to come down to Michigan, Notre Dame. I don't know if something's changed since I read that this morning. I loved him. I thought he really popped whenever you watch Utah this year. It'd feel a little surprising that he wouldn't follow Whittingham to Michigan, right?
Yeah, that would be a little bit surprising. Really premium player. That I'm curious how that hits you too. But like the way that shook out at Utah, pretty wild. And I think as soon as Whittingham, he's going to like coach the bowl game, and then he's done. Then he gets Michigan. Then I'm not coaching the bowl game. I'm going to Michigan. And then as soon as that goes down, then it's like, okay, now Michigan's top defensive players are going in the transfer portal right away. I would be surprised if some of those guys didn't go to Ann Arbor with him. Daly was really impressive this year. One of the best pass rushers in the Big 12 in his first season as a starter. Got hurt at the end of the year. He says he's going to be fine for spring ball, and I don't think teams are really going to hesitate about the injury there. I think that he's going to be a highly valuable guy, and I think truly that's a position, pass rusher, where whether you're experienced and you have production, or you're just a freaky freshman, and we've got a few of those in the portal right now. Like, easily $1 million.
Yeah, the Whittingham thing could not have worked out better for Michigan. I mean, just when you're trying to figure out like who can come in and then also like command the respect, and Whittingham, there's extra boxes that he checks that you wouldn't even be thinking about. Although I was reading about Michigan the other day, and it was like, we just need to get back to like whatever this is. And you're like, well, what do you mean? Like all the controversy around Harbaugh, and then the next coach was at best super horny, at worst dangerous to women. So you have a national championship with this group. Are you telling us like none of that fan base? And I wouldn't expect any single fan base to actually go like, well, I'd rather this be more respectful without the national championship. But Whittingham, like from getting the right coach, a coach that I absolutely love, the demeanor and all this stuff, and like buying whatever his contract is, there should be like another 20% of just instant credibility, right? That all of a sudden, all the nastiness of like the Michigan football brand of the last few years, with also a national championship in there, as I say it, it's second time, it just washes away immediately. Like Whittingham is like the perfect cleanser for everything they're worried about. All right, let me close with this, because you had mentioned it. We had a transfer portal quarterback matchup in the final last year. The final four this year are all portal quarterbacks. Which outcome here are you more confident in picking between the rematch with Indiana and Oregon, and then, of course, Ole Miss and Miami?
Man, I think Ole Miss will get it done. And you look at this, Ryan, like it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility here. If we have Indiana, Ole Miss in the national championship game, I think it's going to be a real representation of the thing we've been talking about here, because those are two programs that are not in the blue chip ratio, right? They are not like, Ole Miss does a great job recruiting the roster, but they're not on that same level as a lot of those SEC schools in terms of just stacking 5-star, 4-star high school recruits. Obviously, Indiana isn't. And so to have those two at the end and one of them is the champion, like I think it would be a reflection of like, you can call it NIL, you can call it portal. It's obviously both, but like that is like, we're in the new era of this. And that if you can do this at the highest level, you can win a national championship. And I think that there's still been that skepticism over the past few years of, cool, you spent a lot of money, built this great portal class. They're not first rounders, they're not second rounders. Like, does that really change? Does that really put you on that same tier as Alabama and Georgia and Oregon and these programs that just stack it year after year in high school recruiting? And so I think Ole Miss can do it, which is wild for everything that's going on there every hour of every day. Like you talk to people on that staff, and I talked to one right after they re-signed Keywan Lacey, which was a huge deal for them. Because there's no question, like they were fighting LSU on Keywan Lacey. He wasn't in the portal, but that you were trying to fight and convince him to stay put, as so many of these players have agreed to. But like you talk to the guys that have been there for the past, what they've gone through the past like 2 months now, they're like, dude, it's like a multi-part Netflix documentary. Like, just if you're living in it every day, the Ole Miss side and the LSU side of it, right? Like, it's one of them said I think it's like Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. Like, you can't just like tell the Ole Miss piece of it. There's two whole stories here. So it's like, it's just been completely insane. And that motivation, I can't think of can you think of like a pro sports example of a parallel of like, hey guys, the head coach just bailed on you. He doesn't think you can win the national championship. How about we go win the national championship? Like, if they get to this title game, like not only is it like just a total nightmare for Lane Kiffin, but like they might actually do it. Like they might, despite their phones ringing every day about, hey, we want you to transfer here and go here. Like, for that group to like come together and play the way they did against Georgia and be as resilient as they were, and then they go play Miami, and like, yeah, Miami's D line is going to give them problems, obviously, like as it does everybody else. Wouldn't be stunning if Miami, won that game, but like the Ole Miss story here that's playing out every day is pretty wild, and can't really like. Is there a pro sports one like that where like, yeah, coach left, but we got better. We won playoff games.
I'm trying to remember I don't think the Knicks did that great after the Pat Riley. I just remember that being like a ton of drama. Certainly, look, it wasn't the equivalent of what Ole Miss is doing right now. I'm just trying, like, I was starting with like, all right,
Yeah.
What pro scenario do you have? It's not like the Jets went on some tear after Belichick decided to resign as the HC of the NYJ. So yeah, I'd have to think about it more.
To have like, it's instead of those guys just being like, wow, this is heartbreaking, this ruins our season. Like, and now we're all, all our coaches are going to LSU, a bunch of our players are going to LSU. The way that Pete Golding, it just galvanized it, and the way he's handling this every day, and with just like, pretty straight talk and just like, not dissing Lane, but like, hey, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to like do what I have to do to kind of get this team through the rest of this. It's unbelievably impressive, and I truly think we could see Ole Miss in the national championship game, which you would have said as Lane was deciding this, you would have said like, no, they probably can't do it, but they took down Georgia, and it took a lot of punches to take down Georgia, and I think that kind of proved like, man, I think they've got an opportunity to finish this run here.
This is where people who don't like me are about to get really annoyed, though, because I would point to a couple things here where I feel like we'll have these results in a moment. Like, I don't know that you'd ever look like at a string of data of like, hey, look at how long this has happened. And you'd be like, oh, what happened in 1947? And be like, oh, that was kind of an outlier year or whatever. And be like, oh, what happened over here? Specific to Lane and the Ole Miss LSU part of it. Anybody that thought that Lane should be coaching throughout this entire thing, as it extends, it's an outrageous thing to even propose. So the fact that Ole Miss was like, you can fuck off, man. I completely agree with Ole Miss, because Lane would be this entire time working these guys to follow him to Baton Rouge while he'd be like the star, and it was just going to be a thing. And as an extent, if they get to the national
meeting, it's like Lane's like, you don't think I'm going to handle that with integrity? It's like, no, dude, we don't think you're going to handle that the right way. Like, of course not.
So, and by the way, if you're LSU, you'd be like, we actually, even if it's like an inside agent, we'd like to get our thing started down here. So like, what are you going to do? Host Sam Leavitt for a portal visit while you're prepping to go up against Miami? That was argued, I personally think, was absurd. Now, here's where I think I'm going to annoy people, is that hey, look at Ole Miss and the job he left for LSU because he didn't think he could do at Ole Miss what he can do at LSU while Ole Miss is on the doorstep of doing this thing. No one has ever, in the decades that I've cared about this sport, has ever argued that Ole Miss is a better job than LSU. So we could have a result that makes it very easy to make fun of Lane and be like, look what you did, dummy. Now they're in the national championship game and you left. But I feel like that's like the one data point out of like 50 to what feels like a really good point in the moment, when in fact you're actually just not telling the truth.
You have to like,
you can tell me.
You just have to appreciate, like, this is a very like magical run from Ole Miss here, right? Like, given,
of course,
it just that's like, what can you say? And then you have the quick turnaround from the Sugar Bowl to the semifinal here, and like, it's an interesting thing to navigate going 4 rounds like they're going to, right? It's no one is saying it's a, we all agree LSU, you're on the fast track to playing for a national championship, no matter who the coach is, no matter whether you're from the South or not, right? Like it is set up for success. But to Lane will want this credit, obviously, but he put together a very special team here and then had to leave that team and not finish the job with them. And then, like I said, for that to just like galvanize them and be like, yeah, screw it. Like, let's just go win a national title together, guys. So, like, and then we'll figure out all the rest of this stuff after the season's over and the coaches will leave. But like, you think about it right now, Ryan, like those assistant coaches at Ole Miss, some of them are like working during the day, getting ready for the playoff game. And then at night, we're going to go over to this room and we're going to go recruit for LSU here. And then we're going to fly back to LSU and host these visits. And we're going to fly right back. And every round, it's like, is Lane going to let us go back to Ole Miss and keep coaching? Or like, is this going to, can we work this out? So yeah, it's just kind of, as divorces go in college football, it's just one of the craziest things you've ever seen.
Yeah, in a sport that has signed up for more and more crazy, especially the last few years. Max Olson, you can read all of his portal rankings, updating it hourly for ESPN.com. He is one of the best to be doing this. We appreciate the time. Thanks, Max.
Thanks, Ryan.
Joining us now, NBA analyst, NBC analyst, Robbie Hummel, who also, from the college game as well. He'll be on Peacock's NBA Monday, January 12th, Celtics at the Pacers, with more on the bench coverage. I have loved this. I can't believe TV tried something new and it's worked this well. You and Austin Rivers, I know they mix it up a little bit in the routine, but I'm going to start there. I'm going to talk NBA and everything, but how do you think this has worked this well? Because I'm actually shocked how great this is going.
Yeah, I was very skeptical when it was pitched because of where your location is. I was like, wait, so I'm going to be on one bench and Austin's going to be on another bench, and then Noah or Michael Grady will be across the floor. How are we supposed to not talk over each other? Because in 3-man booths, there's a lot of nonverbal communication. There's a lot of like, I might point at you if you're going to take a replay, and when you're all the way across the floor, you really can't do that. So, I was a bit skeptical of that, but I will say we did some practice games out at Summer League in San Francisco, and it went pretty well to the point where it's like, wow, there's maybe something here. And Sam Flood, who's the president of NBC Sports, had done this with hockey, and he's kind of brought it to basketball. And obviously with hockey, it stuck, and it's kind of become something that all hockey broadcasts do now, where they've got an analyst or a reporter right down there on the glass is what they call it. So I think it's gone great. It's been really, really interesting. I think Austin and I have developed a really good chemistry, and then Noah is as good as anybody. And you could say the same for Michael Grady. Like, I think the people that we work with in this broadcast have been tremendous. And then I give a lot of credit to NBC for putting crazy amounts of resources to it. We have the same crew. We've got a bunch of cameras. We've got really good people working on these shows. And then I give the NBA credit too. They are a big part of this in terms of saying, all right, we're going to give you this access. The coaches have been really, really good. They've let us come to shoot around. That's a lot more of a college thing. For the NBA, the way that TV usually works is you might meet with the coaches, before the game, but you're not going to shoot around. You're not getting that level of access to see how are they going to guard things and, what's the scouting report on certain players. But they've been willing to do it. And, without their accessibility, it would have been a lot harder to pull this off. But I think it's gone great, too. It's been really, really fun to do it. And, like even last game, we're sitting courtside. We're doing our thing in Philadelphia, and I'm sitting next to Bob Myers. So it's just kind of like it's been surreal. You've got executives, you've got actors, I was sitting next to this dude named the Watch King in Brooklyn. So it's a hodgepodge of who you sit next to, but you do meet some really interesting people.
I love it, and I always think of like, are there no new ideas, or if you have that approach to any of this stuff, does that mean you're just limited creatively? And that it's like, of course, there's all sorts of things that we have not thought of. And I was thinking about there was that NFL game where the camera thing got messed up. I don't know if it was because of the fog, and then we went to like all 22 for half, and then everybody online is like freaking out, being like, "Oh, this is amazing. We should stay with all 22. It teaches you the game, the whole thing." And then they stayed with it for a little bit, and then you realize, like, yeah, actually, the whole reason why we've had it the other way is because it's just a way better thing to watch on television, and that over the course of a full season, this doesn't really work. And so, at first, when it was announced, I was like, "Are they just trying to do something different? Like, how are they not going to like feel disconnected?" And it's been incredible, man. I really enjoy it. And I imagine too, with this access, there's an understanding, and maybe because you're a former player and obviously Austin's very close to it as well, there's a tremendous amount of trust in that you're going to share what you think helps tell the story, but you're not going to betray anybody and being like, "Oh my God, they want to bench this guy. Like he's a dog right now." Like nobody, it's, there's all this stuff that I imagine that you have access to, that you have enough of a filter to understand what will work and what will get you in trouble.
Sure. And Austin has grown up in the NBA. So he has a tremendous feel for locker room, what it's like to be to the day-to-day thing, just being around coaches, players, all that. So I think that he's got a tremendous feel with that. And then, I wasn't in the NBA long. I played 2 years, but I think I've done TV long enough to understand like what these coaches are going to think is okay to have out there and what's not. We ran into something really interesting in Detroit, like in the third or fourth week of this. They were playing the Wizards. It was actually a really good game, even though Washington is obviously rebuilding. And there was a late game situation where it's like, all right, they're going to draw up a play. And Detroit's going to draw this up. And I'm in the huddle, and I watch exactly what JB Bickerstaff draws up. There has been, and I understand this, a little bit, I think, of hesitancy from head coaches of like, they can't just say what the play is, right? Like that could be very, I think, just kind of, maybe breaking the sacredness of what's coming, even though there's a delay, even though it's not like the Wizards can be watching this and, yelling at the guys, "Hey, pin down for Duncan Robinson or whoever." So like we had to kind of like navigate that. And I think we actually did a good job of saying, all right, we waited as long as we could. The ball's about to be inbounded. And then just being subtle of watch Duncan Robinson, it's screen, rescreen. And it actually worked out perfectly where they ran the play right and Washington just blew it up. Like basically 3 guys ran into each other. They all fell down. And then Detroit threw it to the corner for Danis Jenkins, and he hit a 3. But it ended up working out, I think, as well as it could have. But that's one of those kind of tricky things to navigate of, how do you do that? And it was the first time. So we were lucky that it ended up working out probably as well as it could have. But yeah, you're never going to say, because obviously there's times where coaches are trying to motivate, maybe in the NBA, not as much as you'd see in Europe or in college or high school where there's like a coach really, really yelling at a player. But when those things happen or there's an argument on the bench between teammates, you can say, "Hey, there was some heated discussion," without being like, "Hey, he just cussed this dude out to the maximum," right? Like you've got to use some common sense, I think. And that's kind of the approach we've taken.
The story from the most recent game, the Denver win in overtime against Philadelphia, is like perfect for it because Denver's got this lineup, these different groups of guys. Embiid's played better, he's moved better. Maxi's in the MVP conversation, and then next thing you know, you're like, we're in overtime for this one. So how different is the experience between what you're dealing with your bench versus Austin? Because there were two vastly different expectations based on who was playing.
Sure. I'm sure with Austin, and it was funny because we both played for David Adelman. I had him for 2 years in Minnesota, and Austin had him for a couple years in Denver. So we know him well. I'm sure that he was, every time out, he had to be thrilled, right? Like just because these guys are playing hard, they're getting an opportunity. That's one of those games where he's just like, man, I just hope we hang around and we have a chance. Whereas with Philly, I thought the way they played at the Garden on Saturday was uber impressive. Like their offense is just clicking. They're getting whatever they want. New York can't guard them. And their big 3, Maxey has been so good. You're right. Absolute MVP discussion. Embiid, I saw him in Memphis on last Tuesday, and I was like, man, he's throwing the ball off the backboard trying to dunk. He's protecting the rim a little bit better. He's leaving his feet. He's looked better. I thought he looked, kind of the same thing in New York. And Paul George is starting to fit into that equation. Plus the whole VJ Edgecombe dynamic where you're like, man, this dude is a beast. For being a rookie, the clutch factor, the athleticism, the shot making. And yeah, I will give Nick a lot of credit. He was very calm, but the constant message of we need to guard the ball, we need to stay out of rotation, we have got to keep these guys in front of us. And I saw Jalen Pickett a lot in college. He's a hard guard, man, because he's herky jerky and he's a bigger guard. He's got some size, but they couldn't keep him in front of him. And then Peyton Watson is pretty good. Like he doesn't get the opportunity, but that's my biggest takeaway from this game. And I kind of understood this being a lower tier NBA player for 2 years. Even the guys that don't play are really good players, and you just need an opportunity. You need a situation where you're like, man, I get to play through some things. Denver is making 3 after 3 after 3 from guys like Zeke Naji, I think, is shooting 28% from 3. Hunter Tyson was like 22% from 3. Those guys aren't bad shooters, and I always used to give my college teammates such a hard time for this. It is so hard to sit on the bench for 2.5 hours, get put in when the score is decided by 20 or 25 points, and be like, all right, go make some shots. And I used to give our walk-ons such a hard time. I'd be like, man, it's basketball. Go out there and just shoot that thing. And they'd be like, dude, it's hard. And then when I got to the NBA, I was like, all right, they have a point. It is hard because you're not in a rhythm. So I think it's a great lesson, and like everybody in that league can play. And when you get the opportunity and you play hard, and maybe a team like Philly that's trying to be labeled as a contender, they're looking at that roster like, man, there's nobody playing. Their starting 5 is out. Tim Hardaway Jr. is out. Anything can happen. It's why the NBA can be so fun.
Who is, I'm kind of like, this is one of those answers if somebody's like, hey, who do you think the best is? Then it's like, well, it's not that I'm rewarding the best. It's that all of a sudden other people are going to think I'm not the best. But have there been a few moments with a team or with a coach where you've had access to the season where it's just really impressed you? Or maybe
I would say that they all have been great. Like they all have been willing to talk about their teams and showcase. I think the coaches look at this like, and Austin made this point early on, like so often with the NBA, coaches are just scapegoated. He's doing a bad job, he's fired. And I think that this job can do it, or these broadcasts can do a good job of celebrating how good these coaches really are. Because the basketball IQ and just the way that these guys take from all different places. You see action that gets run in EuroLeague or college, or some stuff that guys have come up with themselves. I think that's a cool part of this. Kenny Atkinson's been tremendous. JB Bickerstaff has been tremendous. I really enjoyed my talk with Joe Mazzulla. I played against Joe in college. So that might, just in terms of having a familiarity, I know Joe can be tricky with some of his media that you see, which is actually hilarious. And I was roommates with Deshaun Butler, who's his college teammate and also on the Celtics staff. We were roommates in USA Basketball back in the day in Belgrade for 4 weeks along with Evan Turner. So like that goes a long way, I think, of having a relationship. Honestly, I can't, of all the teams we've had, and I bet we've had like 12 teams, every coach has been great. Sit down, give access, talk about their teams, talk about their game plan. There's not been a single person that's not been good.
Okay, this is probably slanted a little bit who you've been around versus who you haven't been around. But like if you look at the East contenders, right? Because, the expectation of Cleveland is I still expect a Cleveland run at some point, but it's really up and down depending. I mean, even last night, a battle with the Pacers. Detroit gets off to the start. New York we feel good about. Boston's sort of a surprise. There's some of this meaty middle part of the East that early on they had some good records, but you're like, I don't know if they're really necessarily talented enough. If there's one team that you felt like, hey, this might be the team, is there an answer for that for you?
Boy, because the Pistons have come back to earth a little bit, and I do worry some about their shooting and the court getting shrunk come playoff time.
I did love that Knicks game though by them the other night, because it was like really intense defensively. Some of the individual one-on-one defensive matchups, you're like, man, go ahead.
No, I mean, they guard, they destroy you in the paint, they destroy you on the glass. Like they win the margins at everywhere. And it's like, if they can just shoot a decent percentage from three, they're going to have a chance. And then Cade is a legitimate star, right? Like, so I really like Detroit's team, but I think you could make the case the shooting. Boston, it's like, God, they've gotten rid of just everybody, and they don't have Tatum, but Jaylen Brown's playing like a first team All NBA type guy. the Knicks, there just feels like there's something something just seems amiss. And maybe it's you get Josh Hart back and you become whole, and that all comes together here. I agree with you on Cleveland. I think that they're certainly a team. I think like missing Max Strus has been a lot more impactful than maybe people have given credit for. And you've missed Mobley some. God, I've done so many stinking games. What's my man?
Garland was slow back with the toe injury, and he hasn't always looked like himself.
What's my man, the shooter? God, he's actually
Sam?
He was phenomenal. Yes, Sam Merrill.
Sam Merrill, huge
unbelievable start to his season, and then he hurts his shooting hand. So it's like I think he's a really good player. So if they get healthy and whole, I could see that. And I feel the same way about Philadelphia. You get Oubre back in the mix, and you have a healthy Embiid, and you have a healthy Paul George. Now, I get that NBA fans will be like, well, that hasn't necessarily been the case over the last 3, 4, 5 seasons, like that. But if they can be healthy, watch that Knicks game, and you're like, whoa, their talent. I had an executive text me that like, look at Philadelphia's talent when they're healthy, and they're scary. So, I don't know if anybody has necessarily separated themselves. I might be biased because I've seen Detroit like 5 times. But I do love the physicality and toughness that they bring alongside Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I think they're in their own level in the East. And they had that Knicks win without Duren playing, and I probably talent-wise still hold out hope for Cleveland. And Mitchell wasn't playing in that Pacers game where, they had to come back, and then the Pacers put together this little kind of like mini burst at the end there. But I just, like, we could talk about Strus all we want, but if you have Allen, Mobley, Hunter, Garland, and Mitchell, the erratic part of this, like Strus should not be the deciding factor for like, oh my God, they don't have this guy. It's like, well, look at all these other dudes they have. I mean, Hunter's the most expensive 5th option in the NBA. So, I'm with you on Detroit, even though it's not like, hey, oh my God, if Detroit isn't in the NBA Finals, I'm going to be shocked. Like, I'm not that far along with it. That would be aggressive.
No, I'm with you there.
Because you've done so much college, every night has been like, I have so much fun now watching this rookie class where, depending on how the games are kind of like flowing and like what I want to get my eyes on, there might just be a moment where like, you know what? I mean, look, Con Knippel's been like a default. Charlotte's almost like a top 5 league pass rating for me here, just because I'm blown away that somebody this young could understand the nuance of basketball as well as he does. It blows my mind. It's not just the shooting and the scoring and the rookie numbers for 3-pointers. It's like, oh, he understood how to do that. He read that this way. He's always dribbling with a purpose. He's moving the ball with a purpose. Give me your kind of breakdown of like where guys are versus what you would think they would be. Because again, you've watched them all season long, and there's so many rookies to get excited about.
Sure. So I guess you start with Cooper, and, I think it was widely thought generational talent. And he clearly has been, right? Like, it's been phenomenal.
He's been even better.
No, and like he's got the ball in his hands, and if he starts making threes at a clip, like, man, good luck, right? Like, and that's probably going to happen because even at Duke, he started a little bit slow from a shooting perspective, and by the end of the year, he was shooting a pretty good percentage. I just think his feel, his size, his footwork, he's just, and then like defensively, the way that he can be off the ball, as a secondary defender. There's so much to like about Cooper. So yeah, I'm with you. Probably even higher than I would have thought with how much responsibility has been shouldered there. In terms of Dylan Harper, I haven't gotten to see San Antonio yet. And I will say the one thing that's tough for me, because I'm doing so much college, I kind of helicopter into the NBA. Now, I saw him a ton at Rutgers, and I thought really, really highly of him just in terms of pace, size, ability to get to the rim, has a mid-range, can shoot it from 3. Has he, I'll throw it back to you. Has he played as well as you? Because I haven't seen San Antonio in person yet. I can't really even answer that for Dylan Harper.
No, I think that's actually like a fair way, even if you've been watching a lot of it, only because he's asked to impact the game in a way that's really tough in comparison to some of the other young guys. He comes into the San Antonio team that's super established. Fox is coming back from the injury. Castle has made a massive jump. it looks like their preference is to have Castle run the offense and Fox play off of him. So depending on injuries and how they want to go with the Keldon Vassell part of it, and then Harrison Barnes. I mean, Sohan's totally out of the rotation at this point. Champagne's getting minutes. So Harper has to come in and kind of find his spot, and it's tough for him. But I would say in the flashes where he's allowed to be himself, it's really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not on a bad team just running high ball screen and then reading off everything. My favorite thing about him may be how advanced he is around the rim with his size, and his footwork's phenomenal. Like, he just has these moments where you're like, okay, there's so much to work with here, but Castle has made such a jump and playing like real point guard, which I didn't really know if that was true, even though they were trying to package him that way before the draft. So look, Fox looks like he's off the ball as a preference more often than not. So for Harper, it's harder to find a flow of like 5 or 6 minutes where he's in charge of the ball. It's just not going to happen a lot. But I've liked.
And I think with Steph Castle, it was like, if he plays point guard, the teams just go under and under and under and under. Like, are they going under to the restricted arc? And the fact that he's been able to make that work is really impressive. Edgecombe, I guess, is the third pick. I thought he had a chance to be good. Obviously, no one thought this. The clutch stuff is crazy. I know he missed the game-winning layup in Philly the other night, but he makes some defensive plays even where you're like, man, he's just always making things happen at the end of the game. And we saw him in Memphis last Tuesday, and he hits the game winner. Just pretty unbelievable to see his mixture of high-end athleticism, shot making, being dynamic, getting to the rim. I love the way that Philly just reverses the ball and he just rips it down the seam. Like, I think for somebody that's athletic with the way the NBA guards at the nail and help, that's an unbelievably simple action, but also at the same time so incredibly effective. So I would not have thought Edgecombe could have impacted the game like this, but clearly he has. Knipple would be fourth as the fourth pick. I knew he was crafty. I knew he could score. I knew he could shoot. But to see what he's done, you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier with Charlotte is actually incredibly fun to watch. Now, their defense at times is like, whoa. But they score. They got dudes that can really score the rock. And he's a big part of that. The fact that he's like in this conversation in terms of threes made with like the best shooters in the league is pretty phenomenal. Because I thought the adjustment to the NBA 3-point line, just in terms of like at the college three, as a player, I felt like, all right, I can be off balance. I can kind of fade back. You get to the NBA 3-point line, you start doing that early on, and you don't maybe have some of the strength that these guys that have been there for 10 years, and you're off balance, you're fading, man, you're going to shoot air balls. So I just think that he's made that adjustment so quickly, and just his knowledge of how to score, how to play off 2 feet, how to find angles, that's high level stuff. Like it really is. And to round this out, I guess the 5th pick was Ace Bailey. We don't have to do the whole first round. I've seen him play none, but I will say I did see him in college score 39 at Indiana, and the shot making was absurd. Like, he's making shots off 1 foot. But he doesn't, in college at least, he didn't get to the free throw line. He wasn't great at getting to the rim. He tantalizes you with some shots that you're like, there might not be another freshman in the country that can make them. But at the same time, you're like, does he manufacture points in a way that like the best scorers in the NBA do, of getting to the line, stealing easy baskets? That wasn't a thing. And I will say, I have not watched much Utah because we haven't had him. So
yeah, no, I know. I knew you didn't have everybody here, so I wasn't going to be like, all right, now the 23rd pick. Did Austin Butler, was he confused by your entire deal that night?
Yes, I think so. He was incredibly nice.
So you had a Lakers game, and you ended up being seated next to him because of limited seating.
Well, at Staples or Crypto or whatever they call it now, or Madison Square Garden, which we haven't been to, but at some of these places, the real estate there is so expensive, as you know. So it's like I don't know if it's add a seat or, just squeeze you in or beg the owners for their seats or whatever it is. I was told before the game. So this is because this became a thing, right? I was told before the game, Rob, you're sitting next to Jimmy Goldstein. I was like, hell yes. Like, this guy, you know, I'm sure you know Jimmy Goldstein.
Yeah.
Wears the cowboy hat, goes to all
Right.
the NBA games, has a very distinctive look. So I was like, all right, I can't wait to talk to him. Like just because when I was playing, him and Rony Turioff would always have these like discussions before the game, during the game. So I'd always like see that. And I was like, I really am excited to just kind of talk to Jimmy Goldstein and see what he's like. Well, I look to my left. That's not Jimmy Goldstein. I'm like, this guy's probably a model. Or I will say, I have really lost track of like movies, shows, especially during the season. But I have not seen much of his work. So Noah, being the bad partner that he is, he calls it out. Like, it's not like he said it in the timeout, like, oh, Rob, you're sitting next to a famous actor. He just says it on the broadcast, and I had no idea. But yes, he was very oblivious to what we were doing. I was oblivious to what who he is. And the sad thing was I had made a point that night to go out there early and look at just who's around. Okay, there's Eddie Murphy. There's Jimmy Iovine. There's Pat Sajak. Sadly, those are all people that like my freaking grandma would know. Like, I was not aware to the new age actor. And I have had more people reach out to me and be like, how do you not know this guy? Then I'm in the grocery store. I see him on the cover of like Men's Health. It was a funny moment, but it's like, it was an awakening for me that I need to get up in my pop culture.
Yeah, I don't look. Everybody gets older. You start worrying about things. He feels like he's kind of a big deal. And he was decked out. A lot of length on him, though. I don't know if you guys are sizing each other up, but he's got some long
taller.
Length, as they say.
Well, and like a lot of those actors that you run into and you see them in person, you're kind of like, man, they're not very tall. Like he did that probably didn't help my cause either. That when he's standing up, he's not maybe looking in that way, right? Like, so I'll make any excuse that I can for myself to not know this guy. But I will say, I will know Austin Butler for the rest of my life. That will not be something that escapes me.
Who knows? You could be staying with him next time you come out to LA. It's just
maybe he'll
the
invite
origin
me.
story.
There you go.
What was it like sitting next to Bob for that game?
Honestly, it was awesome. Just to kind of like, we spoke in a lot of timeouts, whether it was about, does he miss TV? Does he like his new job? He's obviously got a fascinating perspective on players because he did play and then he builds the Warriors and has been an executive for so long. I was blown away with how cool he was, just in terms of talking to him, and he could not have been nicer. And that's one of those things where you're like, man, that was pretty cool that I got to sit next to Bob Myers and kind of pick his brain during timeouts. Yeah.
He's one of the most impressive basketball people that I've ever talked to.
Totally.
How many teams in the West have you had that you felt like you had a good read on? Because I know, like,
I've seen LA once, now Denver, but Denver played nobody. Timberwolves once, Suns twice, Grizzlies, and that would be So we have Oklahoma City coming up. That'll be fun. I think we have San Antonio at Detroit. That'll be a good game. Well, we've had the Rockets too. We had the Rockets early on, so actually more of the West than I would have thought. But we've been heavy East, and we haven't gone West nearly as much. But I guess in terms of lately, it's hard to say. The Nuggets, you just got to survive, right? Like, just try to keep your head above water, get healthy, and then come back and make a run when you get Jokic back. Laker wise, I guess we haven't seen. God, that Austin Butler game that's almost like a month and a half ago, so they almost feel like ancient history. Same with the Rockets. The Suns have been a great story. Like the Dylan Brooks thing, it is fascinating to watch him psych himself up into these games, because everybody, like, you kind of talk to him beforehand, and he's very thoughtful, and he's good to talk to in terms of, I think, kind of just figuring out what he's trying to accomplish and how they're trying to play. And then you watch him go into this routine of like psyching himself up to kind of go into this alter ego. And man, I give him credit. He doesn't back down to anybody. He's not backing down to LeBron. He's not backing down to Durant. He doesn't care. And, I know that he's going to be a very polarizing figure in the NBA, because obviously a fan of any team but the team that's rooting for him is going to hate him. But I do give him credit, because it's hard, I think, when you're not maybe at the level of Durant and LeBron. And I think if you ask Dylan Brooks, he'd say, well, I am at the level of those guys. But when you're not, maybe that's a credit to just kind of his confidence. But it's hard to do that with those dudes because those are some of the best players to have ever played this game.
How important is it for you to be able to say through all your injuries and everything, and you were one of my favorite college players when you were playing. I just loved the way you played, man. How important are those 2 seasons for you when maybe you're around it and you're thinking like, man, if this hadn't happened, and all this kind of stuff like that, you can say like, look, at least I did play in this league for a couple of years.
Sure.
How important are those 2 seasons?
It's very important. I have such a complex thought process of my professional basketball career. Like it is, if you had told me in high school, I was like a top 75 recruit coming out of high school. If you told me, all right, you're a second round pick, you play 2 years in the NBA, you play EuroLeague, you play in Spain, Russia, Italy, will you sign up for this today? I would be like, yes, sign me up immediately, right? Like I obviously hoped I could make the NBA, but when you're ranked 75th in your class, and granted, our class was absolutely loaded. You've got Derrick Rose and James Harden and Kevin Love and Kyle Singler and Mike Beasley and Billy Walker and OJ Mayo. And like the list just goes on and on and on of Blake Griffin, Evan Turner. And then you get into the guys that were just really good college players and then fringe NBA guys. It's like, man, there was so many good players that when you're playing against that, and then you get to college, you're like, it's not that much of a difference, maybe other than the physicality and the age gap. But, if you told me that as a senior in high school, I would sign up immediately. But after my freshman year, and then you start, having some success and you make the World University Games team for USA Basketball. And my junior year, I'm playing as well as I'd ever played. And then you blow your knee out twice in, 8 months and you don't play basketball for 17. You're like, I don't know if I'll ever play again. And I think that I certainly have a good feeling about persevering through that and making it through all that and getting drafted and then going overseas for a year and playing in Spain and playing well and getting to the NBA. But, I think by the time I was a junior, my thought process is that, man, I can play 10 years in the NBA and I can be a good role player and I can impact winning and I can help a team win. And, I think I go to Minnesota and my first year, we've got a team that's pretty good, but in a loaded West. We won 40 games, but it was K-Love's last year. He was all NBA. He was tremendous. But then we trade him and we bring in Zach LaVine and Andrew Wiggins, who are rookies, and Anthony Bennett, who's a second-year player that's trying to, kind of find his way through a tough rookie year. And we win 16 games. And like we were laughing with David Adelman before the game. He used to create an edit because they would put me in some really hard spots. Like they'd be like, Rob, you're going to bring the ball up, but you're guarding DeMarcus Cousins. So David, like just to kind of keep spirits light, would make these man's game edits. And it would be essentially like, and I knew that I'm obviously not a center. I'm a 3 or maybe a stretch 4. So he'd pull some of the funniest clips of these guys just like weight rooming me just to kind of, it sounds bad, but we would laugh so hard. Like, dude, what are you going to do? DeMarcus Cousins is 6'11", 280, right? Like I'm 6'8", 215, 220. What am I going to do with that? So yeah, I think in terms of also like, this isn't happening for me to broadcast these games if I don't play in the NBA. So I look back and I had a surgeon. He actually just passed away. He had brain cancer. He's one of the best orthopedic surgeons that there was in the world. And his name was David Alchek out of New York City. And when I found out he passed, it honestly punched me in the face because I'd had a bad experience with my first surgery in Indianapolis. And, I go to New York and again, like I'm thinking, I don't know if I'll even ever play basketball again. And this dude could not have had a better bedside manner. He could not have had a better confidence about, we're going to get you back. It's just as simple as doing the surgery. And, I look back on that moment of having my second surgery in New York City at the Hospital for Special Surgery. And, David Alchek not only saved my basketball career to go on to have an all Big Ten season as a senior, get drafted, play in the NBA, play overseas for 3 years. But now in terms of just TV, like I'm not doing NBA games if I didn't play in the NBA. So when I found out that he passed away, it really, kind of like it punched me in the face. And it's like, man, I owe so much to David Alchek for the job that he did to just get me back up to being functional and able to play basketball. And, for the rest of my life, I'll I'll think, for him, I owe a lot to that dude. And, he was an incredible doctor.
Yeah, well, that's really well said, and I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's
But I think about that question with guys that I've got to know, all the years of working at ESPN. Some of the guys that become friends. Like I have a friend who pitched in the minors, I think, for 12 years, and he was in the majors for 6 days.
Yeah.
And when he got sent back down, we were just waiting for him to get the call back up, and then it never happened.
Yeah.
And I think it really hurt to talk about it when it happened. And then the off season of like, what's next? And then I think now years removed, you can be like, thank God I got those 6 days,
Totally.
And
Totally.
I know there's so many Jay Wills, but Jay Williams, Duke, we lived near each other in Connecticut, and there's a couple times we were hanging out, and I'm thinking like, I'm complimenting him being like, dude, when you had it going, when you had it.
Totally.
But then what I didn't realize is that it may have been something that he was like, I don't want to talk about this because it's still something it's going to be, especially when you're him and you're the number one pick. And it looks like you're going to like, who knows what's possible for you in your career. But I imagine like anybody, like life, you just have to get a little bit older, a little bit more removed from it. And you'll find a way to appreciate things that maybe you didn't appreciate nearly as much.
Yeah. And you also realize that like being in the NBA is such a gift in terms of like, it's such a unique place. It's not the real world, but you're around these guys that are the best athletes in the world and some of the best players to have ever played. And, I think when you're there, you're thinking, I'm going to be here for a long time. And it's definitely not the case for most of us, right? Like, most of us, when it's done, it's not like it's your choice. And my ending, this is a bit of a hard pill to swallow as well. I had really good talks with Minnesota, and our team was dysfunctional is not the right word. We were tanking for Karl Anthony Towns. And I'd had some good talks with the front office in Minnesota about coming back, and my agent, Mark Bartelstein, had as well. And, they offered me a qualifying offer. And then on July 4th, this is the worst holiday I think I've ever had. On July 4th, I get the call from Mark that my qualifying offer is rescinded because Minnesota can sign Nemanja Bjelica, who was the EuroLeague Player of the Year. And I'd played against him in college, and I'd seen him overseas. And look, he was a really good player overseas. So I understood the business of it. But that's, I'm thinking, all right, at worst, I signed this qualifying offer. And I'm making 120% of what I made last year, and I get to run it back with Minnesota and try to be a part of this young core with Zach and Andrew and Anthony and all these guys. And just like that, I never play in the NBA again. So it's like, it ends so fast for most of us. It's not like you get the retirement tour, it's just like when you're not good enough, they tell you and you're never seen again. And I will say that the silver lining is I have some incredible stories of playing in Milan for Giorgio Armani's team. My year after I got cut by Denver, because I did go to training camp with them, or the year before I went to training camp with Denver. And then I played in Moscow, and Russia was a free-for-all in so many ways. So from a life experience thing, I did gain some incredible experiences, but you want to be in the NBA. Like my rookie year in Spain, this is a great example. I get there. I remember we landed and I cried. I think I cried every time I landed in Europe because you're like, I have 10 months, which seems like an eternity, even though it's not. It's not that long. And if you're going over there by yourself, if you're not married or you're not, taking somebody with you, it can be a little bit daunting. At least in Milan and even in Moscow to an extent, there was more English-speaking people. But I was in Santiago de Compostela, Spain. So it's not like you're in Barcelona or Madrid where there are more English speakers. It is heavy Spanish, and honestly, they speak Gallegan, which is like a dialect. So it's sort of Portuguese, it's sort of Spanish. Like I took Spanish in high school, but I'm going to really have a hard time if it's just normal Spanish, and I'm definitely going to have a hard time with Gallegan. So it was just like I get there, I have a workout the next day. And the trainer, I'll never forget this. After the workout, he's like, Robbie, are you good? And I was like, yeah, can I just get 2 bags of ice? And the trainer laughed. And he points to the ice machine. He goes, the ice machine's over there. We have no wrap. So you got to hold that stuff on your knees yourself. And you can make the bags. And like, not that I was opposed to making my own ice bags, but I'd never, like at Purdue, what do you need? I need some ice on my knees. Sweet. There's a cooler right there. They wrap it on. Same with the NBA. You know, you've got ice baths. You've got the ice baths in Spain. They were garbage cans. They would just fill them up with ice water. This is in the ACB. This is in the second best basketball league probably in the world in terms of level of play. And we were a smaller budget team that had done a really good job of evaluating. Like, we had Salah Mejri, who played for the Dallas Mavericks on the team, and a couple guys that ended up moving on to EuroLeague. But like William Buford and I, we were taking the baskets down and putting them up like we were building maintenance. After every practice and before every practice, we shared the stadium with an indoor soccer pro team. So think about how crooked the backboards were when we're putting. I mean, it was just like, in terms of life experiences, but also living overseas and seeing different cultures and eating different foods and meeting some really, really good and cool people. That's probably the silver lining. I didn't play 10 years in the NBA, but I did, get to have some experiences of playing for Giorgio Armani's pro team, or playing in Moscow, or even after I retired, playing 3-on-3 and traveling the world and playing in like 19 countries in 2019, trying to make the Olympics. Those are really cool life experiences that, okay, maybe the NBA is what the goal was, but it doesn't always work out, and you've got to pivot. And I think that's one thing that my knee stuff has certainly taught me.
Big thanks to Robbie Hummel. Again, the Peacock NBA Monday game, January 12th, Celtics at Pacers. I enjoy it so much. You three guys are terrific on it. Again, I know they mix up some of the things, but I'm not overstating this, because when the first game, I'm like, what are they going to try to do? I'm like, this isn't going to work. And it's gone completely the other way. So all of you and everybody at NBC deserves a ton of credit. So thanks again, man.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Ryan. And we'll keep doing our thing on Mondays. I appreciate it.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice rr@gmail.com. We've got hi-hat on the hi-hat, Kyle and Ceruti.
Yo.
No Mike, Kyle.
Got this the second time, Kyle.
Fuck. I just said nothing gets past you, man. That's all I said.
That's like, you have the pompadour lean going.
What's going on?
Good.
I think it's good from this angle, honestly.
No,
I thought
good.
about this, and then immediately right off the bat, he throws cold water on it. Even if that's not what you were trying to do, that's how I took it. It's all right. I'm going to keep it like this.
I think you look good.
I'm going to
I
keep
think you
it
look
like
youthful. Yeah, I agree. You look like, not how you do fellow kids, but you look, it's a good youthful look.
Great.
Right, but I'm just talking about like hat placement.
That came off bad.
No, it is. It's different. It's certainly different. It was sort of like I was like going into school, like first day of the new year, and someone's like, dude, what are you wearing? Kind of weird, different for you. But you know what? I'll take it positively.
It's kind of like a late 80s lean on it. Late 80s, early 90s movie. The guys just made it down to Daytona. Who knows what's going to happen?
Oh, man.
I'll tell you, I had that. I rocked that for a little while.
Okay. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's
Someone would say your hat placement selection isn't the greatest, so I don't know if that's the best thing to go off of. But
thanks for coming to my side, buddy.
Yeah, listen, I'm an equal opportunity hater.
What would you say is the issue?
You got a lot of actually. You know what? Now that we're on this topic, we got a long pod today, but might as well do it. Every once in a while, I'll just check out the YouTube comments about things on the pod or whatever, see what people like, what they don't like. And man, a lot of comments about your hat last episode. And I thought it too, very
the
aggressive,
tool thing?
sort of like
the patch.
Yeah, whatever was on there was like it was pronounced.
It was very pronounced.
Yeah, what were the issues?
So I think somebody said it was casting a shadow over your face. That's how big it was.
That's funny.
Well, that's my guy Dave Prescott, invented the fast wrench. Firefighter down in Florida, college buddy, and he invented this wrench that basically his whole thing was like, the way his mind works, it makes all the sense in the world, because in college you'd be like, this guy's going to invent something, but if you really knew him, you're like, yeah, he probably would. So he's a firefighter. He's been down there forever. He's an awesome guy, and he realized that they had to use like multiple tools. They needed all these different tools to be able to access their job, like however they're doing it, hooking up to different water supplies. I mean, it's beyond my understanding, right? Because I don't fight fires in my spare time. And so he basically just decided there needs to be this like multi-tool that's incredibly durable that basically handles all of these different things that you're dealing with. And it's incredible. So I ordered one. I'm bringing it to the Miami, not Miami. I'm not going to Miami, Manhattan Beach Fire Department. So that is his company. So I wore the hat and we're just giving him a little shout out there. Nice. So anybody that has an issue with that.
You hate firefighters, apparently.
You have a pretty successful group of college buddies. I'd say I'm probably near the top of my group, and that's not saying a lot. So you had like,
yeah, that new Forerunner.
Come on, well, dude. Yeah, obviously that gave me a small bump, but I think in the grand scheme, I mean, we've got like country music stars, guys inventing fast wrenches with honestly pretty cool gear to go with it. And every once in a while, you just, it's certainly it really draws the eye.
Had a lot of depth on the logo. Yeah, I mean, it's a patch. It comes off. I think there's other patches. That was part of the branding.
It's detachable?
Wow. Yeah.
That would make a little more sense.
Yeah.
Checks out. Yeah.
But I'm glad it was even brought up because I didn't expect to even give him that kind of shout out. But there you go. If you're on the fire, you're in the wrench business, you're looking for a new one.
Yeah.
There's no promo code.
We know a guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not yet.
While we're just honestly, I'm just gonna start airing this stuff out in the pod last night.
Okay.
It deserves to be done.
Oh no.
Big Cat text last night, and honestly, the guy was getting in DMs yesterday too. Not the DMs of the show. He was following up on the pictures about the wine thing yesterday. We have Stephen Shea wants to do a wine review of your wine, and Big Cat was asking us like, how do we get the wine to them? And I was like, I don't even know if this wine exists yet. It's like I think it's like a prototype technically, but are you open to Shea doing a wine review? I guess he's got the fastest growing sommelier show on X right now, so that's good.
It's just the fastest growing in America. I know, tough to keep track. I got to know when we're shipping because this whole thing is kind of
starting to feel like a little over the skis.
Well, yeah,
because I'm getting text too.
I'm
getting text. I'm like, I can't put you through to him. I'm sorry because I don't think he's at that stage yet.
Look, the backstory is it was this real estate deal with a friend, and then they were like, "Hey, while you're here, do you want us to make you some soft?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's great." And then they made logos, and then they were telling me yesterday, they're like, "All right, this can start shipping in 2 months." I was like, "Whoa." Like, what the fuck? I was like, I thought you were just going to make like a couple cases.
Said yes. Yeah.
Right. And so I got a lot of other stuff I have to worry about, but there's a pretty good chance I'm going to be really like annoyingly not responsive about anything having to do with this wine for a little while. If that's okay with everybody.
Way to set the expectations. That's great.
Yeah. Honestly, we got a lot of content right now, football playoffs. We don't need it. We'll need to do this, push this into the spring, summer. This will be good content then.
Yeah. I mean, Sauv is good year round.
This will be great post-June. Yeah, when it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
you're open to it. You're open to having him do a wine review.
I don't know if that I want him doing the first review, though. Does he have enough credibility in the game?
He just started.
He's not just some guy. I mean, he took a football class, I heard. So
he is that guy. No, I get the football.
No, I think Shay's funny. I'm just joking. I actually never met him, but I think he's funny and I like him. So
I like him.
Not a diss.
And by the way, it's not really like I may be on the label, but it's not 100% my business. And so the guys in Oregon might be like, "Who is this up and comer?"
Mm-hmm.
That might be a nice way of saying it.
Yeah, no pub is bad pub though. You know.
Oh man.
All right, hey Kyle, pull up the spreads on DraftKings.
Okay.
Let us know what they are. I think as of this morning, both lines were at 3.5. Miami and Indiana favored. Looks like Ceruti already has them and wants to say.
I thought we were just going straight up, but now I got to do the spreads. So here we go.
No, we're going to do a little mini contest for DraftKings. Mini alliance, side alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all going to pick both games, and then
3.5.
Who has the overall? What's that?
3.5. You are correct.
Both 3.5.
Yeah.
All right, so Kyle, the board is yours. You can pick whatever you want. We'll do combined record off of the semifinals and then the final. If we have to come up with a final score and everything else, it'll be Super Bowl lunch, not dinner. Can't afford it. We'll do a Super Bowl lunch. I'm just kidding. I don't know that we're going to have time to do all these dinners based on what you guys have already signed up for.
So this will be different than the salad bar?
I'll tell you what. The three of us, Ruby Tuesdays, old school.
So, yeah.
As many times you want to go, as many fixins as you guys want.
Fixins.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
The winner has to pay, though, because you want to celebrate friendship.
Yeah, I like that. So with that being said, I'm going to take Ole Miss plus 3.5.
And you got to pick the other game, too.
And Oregon plus 3.5.
Okay. I love it.
Not paying for the salad bar, it looks like. I'm just kidding. I actually do believe.
Me?
Sure.
I'm taking Miami. Don't really have. I just think the front is awesome, and I think the Ole Miss fairy tale thing is a little overplayed. I do love Trinidad though, so I'm gonna hate to root against them. And honestly, I don't like rooting for Miami either, but I think Miami is just a better team. And then I'm gonna take Oregon too. I two guys picking against Indiana. It's probably stupid to pick against Sigs, but got to beat them twice in one season. I think Oregon's good. I think they get them.
Wow. All right.
Or don't lose by 3. So there you go.
I kind of like the points on both sides. The points haven't really done much. It was 4 at one point. It was like a 3, then a 3.5. So I don't know how much is going to change in the next couple of days. I'll take the points with Ole Miss, even though if I had like, hey, you got to pick the game straight up, I would pick Miami. I do feel like Beck not even having to do anything to this point. It's like he's probably due. And if there was a defense of all the playoff teams that were ranked, like that was my whole point with Ole Miss's defense. And it's not like they shut down Georgia, but Georgia's just not to the standard that you'd expect with that defense generally. And I'll take Indiana cover. I'll do something different here.
All right, so all 3 of us have different variations.
There you go.
I like that.
The variations vary. Let's get to life advice. As we all knew, the amount of dog poop content
dominated the inbox,
overflowing. Yes, Kyle. Couldn't put a lid on it.
Nice.
Are
you just
look,
picking
I think
one
most of you got it. I think most of you got it. That it's not the greatest thing. And then those of us that have garbage cans are supposed to think about you walking around with a plastic bag of dog poop. Like nobody wants that in your hand, right? Long term.
Throw it in some construction lot or something just because you've held it long enough. There's better options.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm a dog guy through and through, and that's a choice that you make. Like you don't have to do that. You don't have to have a dog. The people. The worst is the people that like think that like they're just like biodegradable and they just leave them on the sidewalk. It's like that's not really how this works, guy. But okay.
No, there was a construction lot that was just empty for a long time, and it was insane the amount of people that would just throw their dog shit over the small little flimsy fence, and it was just like there must be 100 bags of dog shit in this corner lot that eventually somebody's going to start construction on.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. LA was crazy.
The only one that I think most people got it in the sense that if it depends on where you live. All right. So a lot of it has to do with where you live. And I'm biased in my setup because like everybody that decides to live where I live, like you just accept the fact that everybody's just on top of each other. And like, that's just the way it goes. Like Chris Long comes out to visit. He's like, I can't fathom having a house where it's like, all it is just people all the time. Like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I'm so used to it because I've never really lived on like, growing up, I did, driveway, property. You can't see anybody other neighbors. But from college on, this is kind of the way it's always been. Is I've always lived sort of like within walking distance of everything. And it makes you think like, wouldn't I eventually want to at some point have? But I think this is an entirely different topic when you're trying to figure out plotting building lots. So let's not do that right now. Most people, I think, get this right. A lot of people were like, look, if the trash can is out and it's trash day and there's trash that's already in there, it's all going to the same place. Like, what's the issue with throwing stuff on the top? I would tell you, I agree with that. I'm not to the point, maybe in 15 years, I'll be so old that I'll just be like looking for things to be pissed off about because I think there's like an age thing that's like, wait, so you're now telling me that you don't want your garbage messed with? And then the line
coming for your garbages too, yeah.
right, yeah. Like that's my garbage, and I don't.
So well, it could be a little emasculating if it's like you're just going to do that right in front of me, So
so you think there's something to that?
I think I think there's no wrong answers. The only guy who would be wrong is the poop thrower, And so that's why that guy is like, if you get caught, you just say, yeah, sorry, your trash can, your rules, my bad. I don't think you're supposed to defend your thing. But if somebody who's just saying in general, all poop throwing is bad unless you own the trash can or the city owns it, I would maybe argue with you. But I'm saying if you're caught in the act, I think you just kind of bow to the trash can owner. And you're like, my bad, dude. I'll remember that one. Throw it on your neighbors next time.
Here's the one that pissed me off, and I'm going to use
I knew
this
you
as
had
an
one.
example.
I knew you had one.
Let me just say this.
Been stalling until this.
Right.
He's just been scrolling the whole time.
I was trying to find it again.
You were.
Over 90% of the responses were basically like the common sense part of it, of like, hey, look. And we even had some guys be like, I've done it. I don't love that I've done it.
Yeah.
Right. And if I had a dog and I was like, I don't want to deal with this right now, I'm telling you right now, I'd probably do it too. But if I lived in this area that I live in, I would stop doing it. I would map out where the garbage cans are. The Strand's really nice. You just take a little U-turn down there and there's public waste baskets there and there's plenty of
far as
other
the eye
options.
can see.
Right. And you're going to get there pretty quickly. You're not going to be walking across a desert here with fecal matter in your hand. But this guy fucked it up, and we're going to read his email now. His dog's Rufus, 85 pounds, lab mix, player comp, 2016 Marcus Peters, ball hawk, insane ball fixation and fetching ability. So he did a nice little, that was kind of cool, but not cool enough for me to think that the rest of the email worked. Every single time I walk my dog and there's a can on the curb, I use it. If cans aren't put away by the morning following trash day, it's fair game. My only concern is if they are garage cans versus side cans. We had a few people do this where if you don't have your cans away by a certain amount of time, then that's essentially on us.
It's just
and
free
the tax
use.
is your dog shit sitting in my trash bin
For 6.5 days.
Right.
That's property of the community if it's not put away by a certain time.
Yeah, that's classic.
Unbelievable.
I broke into your car because you had it unlocked, and
it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Hey, my car got broken into. Why did you park it there? And you go, okay, never mind.
Done talking about it.
Yeah, that's insane. Okay.
Well, I hope that guy changes his ways, because that might just jade your whole topic. If you have a guy on the street who's looking, he's trying to snipe your can. He's doing his 6:30 walk.
He's saying next morning. So
what's next morning? Is it 6:30? It's
if he's mentally there, that means he's not like. Because here's the deal. I have to put mine out super early. I miss it occasionally because it's always on a taping day. It's just me. So if I miss a pickup, it's not the end of the world. But if I had to put the can in my garage, it would be really bad. But I have sort of like an outdoor organizer bin.
You're not a night before guy? You're a morning. Yes, you got. I just do it the night before.
Well, you get a little wind off that offshore breeze, brother.
Yeah, you've seen how close he is. Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah. There's a little more distance between the driveway and the trash can up here in the Northeast.
Nobody cares. Until somebody has a thing of dog shit in their hand, they're just going to go, oh, wait, the cans have already been emptied and it's just a little bit later in the day and he hasn't had time to put them away. But the town will actually get really on your case if you don't have some sort of organizer and if you want to leave them sort of exposed to the street, because they don't want every single house having all of their garbage cans all over because it just wouldn't look that good. But then it's like, all right, so now I got to pull it into the garage. And if you're doing squats that day and somebody was like, hey, this guy didn't put his can away in time. Come on, man. All right. This is a long show today.
It is, yeah.
You want to just do a quick one?
Maybe A1.
Yeah.
just
A1.
A single.
15 minutes in and
we haven't done anything yet.
I mean, we were doing poop follow-ups, but we
All right,
haven't
let's
really
do
had
this.
it.
A quick one. I let an 11-year-old beat me at pickup. I think we've covered this neighborhood before. 6 foot, 180, bench 165. Well, no kidding, he beat you. No, I'm just kidding. Squat, deadlift 225, mostly rock climb, do yoga. Yeah, you're going to be in much better shape. Your back isn't going to hurt. Don't worry about my bench joke, man. Good for you if you're doing all this stuff. Pickup comp, Andre Robertson, all D, no jumper, was never the same after some knee injuries. I volunteer with an organization that matches me with a kid who wants a positive role model. My little Jack, he did change the name just in case We have an 11-year-old listening to the pod. Jack just started playing basketball. One of his goals is building skills and confidence. So we played a couple games of one-on-one. He's got solid fundamentals, but he obviously can't compete with the height speed advantage. First game, I hit a couple layups and immediately realized this isn't training. This is a grown man destroying a fifth grader. So I switched to only lefty threes and hook shots and gave him 3 to 5 feet of space on defense. I let him win a close one and then a little wider in game 2. He had a blast. We got ice cream. Great day. Great coaching. Mission accomplished. Wow. Next time we hang out, though, Jack is talking crazy amounts of trash. I'm fine with good-natured ribbing, but I also want him learning sportsmanship and not turning into the kid everyone avoids at open gym. Now I'm torn about what to do the next time we play. Option A, demolish him 11-zip as a lesson. But then he learns I was sandbagging and I risked shattering the confidence we were trying to build in the first place. Also, I'm in my 30s. If I celebrate a shutout on an 11-year-old, I can't go back to Whole Foods. I don't know what the Whole Foods. Is there a rule?
Maybe that's a pop culture thing. I don't know. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe that's a line from a show we didn't watch.
Maybe we need like a social influencer on the show. Should be like, oh, you're not looks maxing? Option B, play it close
real,
and win like 11-8, but keep the hope alive that he can get me. Kyle, it sounded like you had something there.
I'm just saying that's not real. Is it like smashing your face with a hammer in order to like build up some sort of calluses? Is that true?
Well, I mean, I don't want to give away all the secrets.
Okay. All right. Continue.
Option C, keep letting him win close games and trust his real coaches to develop his game. I'm here to build confidence. Appreciate your thoughts. As we pivoted into the trash talking part of it, I was leaning toward option A, 11-zip, but I don't think it's 11-zip, but I think he needs to lose a game.
Yeah, I like a happy medium. Like maybe you are Dikembeing his shit, but you're still keeping your left-handed thing that you're doing. Like maybe you're hamstringing yourself a little bit, but still to the point where if you're blocking a trash talking 11-year-old shots, that's got to feel pretty good, regardless of what you've allowed the score to become. You know, maybe you just amp up the defense, Tony Allen this thing instead of, just demolishing the kid.
Yeah, Ryan, you probably, I think you've talked about this, like the dad role of like the first time you beat your dad, like that's like a big deal in life, in a sport, in like competition. My dad wasn't a big athlete, so I didn't really have that, but like obviously I know it's a thing, and I don't know, I just don't like the idea of giving it to like giving him.
Well, he already did.
I know. I'm like kind of off of that to begin with. Like I think you already kind of screwed up.
Oh no,
so
it's over.
So I think you just kind of lost. I mean, I'm happy for you. You're helping out the community. It's great work. But I think, just if I'm coaching up like I don't know if it's the Boys and Girls Club or whatever we're doing here, like, I think you gotta like legitimately beat the kid until like he at least is somewhat close to you, and that just it builds calluses. To Kyle's point about hitting somebody in the face with a hammer, like you got to kind of like let that kid learn how to take an L first, because then if he's the guy that starts talking smack with no actual backup to it, then that's not. Then you end up with somebody like me in college who's talking shit to people who probably shouldn't be talking shit to. So I don't know. I kind of don't like that idea. I think you should have.
Chirpy Steve.
I keep thinking about that
like
picture when we were sharing those pictures, and I was just like, "That's exactly
you could
the
see
guy
you
I've
could
heard
see
about.
the words coming out of my mouth."
The legend.
Yeah, it wasn't great. So as someone who was that kid, maybe I don't know.
No one ever punched you?
I'd actually never got punched. No,
find it
That's
incredibly
probably
hard to
part of
believe.
the problem.
Probably, yeah. But and I didn't really have any bigger friends. So I don't know.
Was it the Quinnipiac thing? Well, see, you had a hockey. Well, because like UVM, our big
though.
What's
I
that?
wouldn't do that. I wasn't talking shit to hockey players though.
Yeah. Like we always talk about UVM. It was like there was really no one to be afraid of. We didn't have football, and then we were friends with all the hockey players, so it didn't matter.
And your friends were all fucking geniuses, apparently. So that was cool.
Engineers,
Yeah.
engineering country ballads, and goals. Shout out St. Louis.
Nice.
You don't disagree though? Like I don't know. I don't like the idea of just letting the kid win. I don't love it. I guess
I
I'll have
agree
to
with
see,
you.
like,
I think he already started off with that way. So, I mean, whatever. Maybe he's not a born coach and he's just trying to figure it out. It's like, what do we do from now? And I don't know if you should go from,
I think you knock him down a peg then.
Yeah, certainly knock him down a
Yeah.
peg. And that's why I think getting your shit swatted often will do that anyway, whether you're, whether you're scoring 11-0 on him or whether you're just blocking everything he puts up, which is probably going to be satisfying to you as the guy who is just getting shit talked.
Think about our emailer here, though. He was concerned about changing the kid's name. He does yoga. His first thought was like, I want to volunteer and help kids build confidence. And then he noticed something about the kid's personality he didn't necessarily love. Like, this is a very thoughtful.
Yeah, no, I agree.
This feels like a very good person emailing the show here for a bunch of different factors. So this is somebody who's probably not an only child and struggling with the processing the way others' emotions could be impacted by their decisions. This is somebody I imagine has multiple siblings and can see the world in different ways. No offense to the only children out there, but there's just a lot of data. All right, sorry. So I think this person's like coming from a great place, right? So it might even be hard for the person emailing us to understand that Jack needs to fucking taste a little humility here.
Right.
So even if you're 30 and he's 11, don't let him win anymore. Doesn't mean you have to destroy him. Doesn't mean you have to start beasting him on the block, scream out mouse in the house, too small, that kind of stuff.
Slap the backboard. Yeah.
Right. The emotional roller coaster of being 11, although I don't know, 11-year-old boy, I feel like you're pretty sturdy with stuff though. It depends on who you're at, like where your upbringing is. Then you can start getting a little weirder, after that, and, emoing out.
I'm trying to think of what age was like the peak. No one could say anything to me. Age 11 is high.
11 is very high.
You think?
11 is
wow.
Because you don't know shit, but you think you know everything. Like when you get,
I don't know. I think I was pretty like deferent to adults still at 11.
At 11, oh man, I feel like
I don't know. It was still like my mom was like, "Don't let me hear you being disrespectful to anyone in this big wide world. You better keep that shit tight if I find out." So
okay, but what about the park with it, like outside of earshot, let's say, of any adult, Kyle?
Oh, well, that's a night and day Jekyll and Hyde situation,
Right.
I think
Your weed story's phenomenal, by the way. You don't get enough credit. Like that needs.
What?
People need to talk about that. You just coming home and telling your parents, like, yeah, smoked it. I'm not supposed to debate over. Like, that's
up,
right.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys think is just probably like, what do you want me to do?
Then telling your brother, don't deny it. They know you did it.
Dude, they
Don't
want you to have a
debate it.
little shame. That's right. Have a little bit of shame. Then they think they really got you. And then just figure out how you're sneaking out. Like,
If I were a
why are we
parent, my
making this hard?
15-year-old kid came back just reeking of the old ganj, and I'm like, hey, what the fuck is this? And they'd be like, you know what? I did it. It's on me. And
Stupid.
then went to the room. I'd just be like, what are we supposed to do now?
Yeah.
He's 2 moves ahead of us.
Yeah.
Can't even enjoy this. Yeah.
It's true.
I'm going to reflect on my decisions. Thank you for your input. I'll be playing Zelda.
That's exactly
High as
what
shit.
was going on.
Are there any Uncrustables around? All right. That'll do it for the show today. Thank you. We're saying thanks to Tom and Kevin until they come on at some point. We'll bring them on. Ask them if they got high when they were in high school and got caught. Thanks to Kyle Ceruti. Thank you for checking out. And please subscribe to the Ryen Russillo Show, Barstool Sports.
Uncrustables.